Week 11, well, it was better than week 10 at the very least. I mean, there's some establishing things for future episodes here, but this is really just straight up a standalone episode. Really, the only thing that gets established is that Lucy received a letter from Valine, her mother, and Valine explained everything about what went down between her and JR, and she believed her. Lucy believed her without question. As she should, because that happened to be the truth. The big storyline this episode is focused on Lucy. It's going to be Lucy's birthday. Yay! And the only thing that she really wants is for her mother to come to her party. Now, nobody thinks this is a good idea, and for good reason, because she wouldn't feel comfortable on that ranch for one thing, and the last time she went there, she had a pretty big, tense comeuppance with JR, and it would just be better for Lucy to see Val on her own. I think everyone except for Lucy gets that. But she goes along anyway, and she's like, I want it so bad. And they're like, okay. But what ends up happening is they put their foot down. That's not going to happen. We're not going to invite her. And she steals JR's car and credit card, and she just leaves. She runs into a guy along there, and that's where the Runaway, which is the title of the episode, part really comes into play. There's a couple of issues with this episode. She becomes a hostage, basically, in the scenario, and they steal from a bank, maybe. They definitely steal from a restaurant. And a gas station as well. I mean, this episode's fine, and I like that we focused on Charlene Tilton, who plays Lucy, because I actually like Charlene quite a bit. I think she's an interesting actress. I think she's an interesting character. She's a very underused character at this point in time. So it's nice to see her, but the reality is, she was never going to be on the same level as Pam and Sue Ellen in terms of screen time because she's that much younger than the two of them. And she just plays a different role. She's the granddaughter, so she can get away with everything. She can be a spoiled brat. The other two are constantly dueling slightly with each other, but also with JR. So Lucy's not going to get that much love or attention. I like Lucy quite a bit. Yeah, okay, so I think the biggest issue I had with this episode was they go to a talent competition at just this local bar, basically, when they're driving away. And he forces her to go up and sing. And, on its own, it's fine. I don't mind the singing. I think it's an interesting way to get Charlene to perform. I'm not sure if it's Charlene's real voice or not. I hope it is, because it sounded lovely. And she gave a great performance up on that stage. But there's a lot of issues with that scene. The primary one being, I don't believe that would be how she would perform under those circumstances. Because Charlene's up there, she's jamming, she's just doing her thing, really loving the spotlight. The audience is very receptive. Oh, and the audience is clapping horribly. They really need to learn rhythm. But, and I believe that for Lucy, that Lucy would love that spotlight, that she would love performing, but not in that scenario, because she's pretty much held hostage almost at gunpoint uh, during some moments in this episode. And why? Why would she be up there singing and all happy? She would be petrified, horrified. It's like, okay, let's revert back to an episode that I thought was great, but too dark for the show, which was the 4th episode of the original pilot trial run. And the whole of the Ewing clan is held hostage. And Sue Ellen has to come out in her bathing suit with her Miss Texas sash. And she has to perform. And she can't because she's mortified by the scenario. And I get it, she's not at gunpoint at that point in time, Lucy isn't. But I really believe that the way Sue Ellen reacted in that scenario was much more realistic than the way Lucy reacted. It just seems like they wanted to have Charlene sing on the show, and that was the only way they could figure out how to do it. And it just, I'm like, no, I'm sorry. That's the biggest thing that bothers me about this episode, because to me it doesn't play real. It's not truthful. One of the great things about this episode, though, is Jock, the head of the family, and Miss Ellie, very, very strong couple, very powerful. And Jock is a hard ass. He's just very, very strong. But you see his vulnerability and how much he cares for his granddaughter. And how much he loves his granddaughter and loves his wife in this episode. And I think that's the note that they end the show on. So I know in previous weeks I've complained about the way they've ended the show, but I thought that was a lovely ending. It was just great. So anyways, I mean, yeah, there's some great things in this episode and some things in this episode. So this one was really a mixed bag. Am I looking forward to next week? Not really. But I'll be there anyways, and I hope you will be too. So please continue to keep up with me as we continue going back to South Fork.